Hi, good morning. Hello. How was I? When Ari, who I haven't met, is he here? Hello, Ari. Hi, we spoke on the phone, asked me what I wanted to call my talk. I was very taken aback because I hadn't thought about it. So I said, I want to call it, can we narrow the gap between local unemployed people and local employers? And now I'm really pleased I chose that title because I realised afterwards it is absolutely what I want to talk about, a fortunate thing. I was also really pleased, although it sounds a negative thing to say, when Lionel started his talk by saying he was disappointed by the degree to which we've managed to bring those two worlds together. And despite masses of good work, and I'm sure there's really, really good examples in this room, so please nobody go away or be offended by what I'm going to say, I'm also quite disappointed by the degree to which there are not structural relationships between the world of the unemployed people and the world of employment, or not better structural relationships. And I agree with him totally. We need to rethink that. And the idea of recipes, new structures is absolutely right, I think. And I hope we can talk about that. Start with two conundrums, or two might be seen contradictions. I manage the Westminster Works programme that's been referenced here, and I'm going to manage a new work programme, the government's new work programme. So I work mainly with unemployed adults to try and get them into work, people who are categorised as far from the labour market, although as I hope to demonstrate that can be a very complicated category indeed. The first conundrum is, in Westminster Works, we put 600 people into work. Good result, hit our targets, terrific, lots of good write-ups, great publicity. Keith's organisation got the ESF Employer of the Year award for its work on work placements. Job done. However, of those 600 people, only 10% went into work because of the work we were doing with employers. 90% went into work because of the work we did with those people. In other words, we helped them get ready for jobs, we helped their CV, we helped them practice for interviews. Really, really good stuff, terribly important, you know, but why was the other percentage, the direct links with employers, why was it so low? And that's not to say we didn't have some excellent work being done. There are people in the room I can see here who were job brokering for us and opening up opportunities, but those percentages are low. The other thing I'd say is that most people who work in Westminster don't come from Westminster. That in itself is not a bad thing. It'd be ridiculous to suggest we all had to work on our doorsteps. I don't. I live in Tottenham and I work in Westminster. But there are an awful lot of unemployed people in Westminster who can make very good local employees, and there's enormous advantages to employers to employing local people. When the tube strikes start next week, or whenever they're going to start, you'll find your local employees will be the ones who will be turning up. Local people can take on part-time jobs, they can fit them around their families. There are all sorts of advantages researched and published in government research about employing local people to an employer. Now, some people think, it's a philosophical question really, that the best thing to do with employers is just leave them alone to get on with it and stop interfering with social policies, employment projects. You know, that business is best left to generate itself and to have its own life and to do what it needs to do. And that in some ways, people like us are always knocking on your door saying, please help us, in a sense, trying to get in the way of a natural economic process. What I want to argue is there's absolutely no contradiction between wanting your business to do the best it can and working with a local employment organisation. Unemployed people are a very complex category of people. We've got women who are returning after having children, people who've been ill but are now better, who want to go to work, people who are dyslexic but would like a job that doesn't involve too much reading and writing. And in general, I'd say just people who've just missed the boat, you know, in some way, whatever reason, bad family background, didn't get on well in education, some kind of physical or mental barrier, whatever it is, they've missed the boat. And if you miss the employment boat, it's a very long, hard slog to catch up with it again. And that's what we are trying to do. Why I say I think it's a bit disappointing is I think employer engagement, there are some really good pockets of good practice. I can see Fahim over there, he's been putting our local residents into good jobs in Regent Street retail. We've recently done a recruitment campaign for Primark. We put 13 people into Primark in the last few weeks. So there's some really good practice. But on the whole, nationally, I think it's extremely bitty. It tends to rely on one-to-one relationships between a job broker and the employer. It's not something that's structured in necessarily to all the things the company does. You get big companies, and one part of it is doing a lot of work with the community, but other parts are not involved in that project. I think bittiness is the way I would characterise it. And then you get the argument back, well, actually, as a business, I want the best person for my job. I don't care where they come from. They could come from Mars as long as they're the best person for the job. And that's completely right. I mean, I run a small business, and when I interview people, I want the best person for the job too. But again, I don't think there's any contradiction between looking at some of the local unemployed people, maybe even looking at them first, and then choosing the best person for your job. I'm always surprised by the amount of good work employers do. They raise money for charities, some of them go on supported marathon runs, they raise money for children in need. The very best way, particularly if you care for children actually, that you can help local people is to give one of them a job. The best way of helping a local child who's in poor circumstances is to employ a member of their family. It's the long-term solution really, employment to poverty. Raising funds for good events, terrific, but if you really, really want to help, give someone a job. Just to sell some of our clients, many have massive skills. They have great language skills. Some are graduates actually. Some have barriers. Some have struggle with IT. That's often a barrier, but not all jobs require IT. And I just think there's a slightly unfortunate history in that some employers have been put off working with schemes like the one I represent. Some have had bad experiences of being sent loads of applicants from, I shouldn't say who turn out to be not very suitable. We had one example recently where a well-known patissier, I don't know, someone who makes pastries, what's the word? Patissier. Was sent a lot of unsuitable candidates and as a result pulled out of our scheme before we could actually put it right. Some people think, I don't really want to get involved because I'll just have to take them and they might not be right. You don't have to take them, you know. If you don't want them, if we present people to you and you don't want them, you don't have to take them. But please, can we set up some structures whereby at least you can have a look. Other pluses are we can do customised training, we do CSCS training, we can do food hygiene, we train people to work in schools, we can upskill people with their IT. If an employer wants a particular kind of training, we have now the funds to actually put it on through the new work programme. And the work programme too offers some new potential for supporting people, retaining people in work. In the old days, which lasted until about the week before last, the emphasis was to get people into work. Get them into work, get them into work, get them into work, job done. You mentioned this. And not really looking so much at how far and how long people stayed in that job or whether they left soon after. In the work programme, the actual funding forces us to think more about what happens after they get into the job. So there is some funding for helping people with their childcare, if that's the barrier, helping with initial travel costs, having a one-to-one advisor who's in regular contact with them, checking they're doing all right and working with the employer. Some people don't need that at all. They go into work and actually our problem is then tracking them because they don't want to see us again. You know, you're part of my past and now I'm going on. But where people do need support, the new work programme does actually give a chance for a lot of in-work support. So I'll end there. I think we have some really simple solutions we can look at if we're thinking about new structures, new recipes. For example, if you've got a job coming up, why don't you just ask us to send our very best candidate? We can look through hundreds and hundreds of people, find our best candidates, have a look at them. If you find better candidates yourself, good luck to you, but at least we've, in some senses, levelled the playing field a bit. And just finally, why should we employ locally? Because you should love your neighbour.